Where are you at now? What's your current status on the view of the China's aggressive approach to trade, and what should the U.S. be doing more of to help counter the CCP?
Thank you for that question. This is something that we do a lot of thinking on. Overall, we are using a lot of different approaches, both domestically here to continue to invest in ourselves, to be able to compete from a position of strength. We are working in multilateral settings. In this area, you are right. I agree with you. There is a lot more for us to do. We are primed to do it.
You heard there from Kansas Congressman Ron Estes grilling U.S. Trade Ambassador Katherine Tai on what steps members of the Biden administration are taking to counter China's growing influence over global trade. This was during a House Ways and Means Committee hearing last week.
So in her testimony, Ambassador Tai was light on specifics, but emphasized President Biden is open to working with U.S. allies in the future to hold China accountable. Was that answer enough to satisfy GOP lawmakers? Let's
ask Congressman Estes, who's joining us now again from Kansas, member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Sir, thanks so much for joining us in studio. What stood out to you from that testimony? Were you satisfied with what you heard?
Well, I think my concern in general is the administration said the right thing when they came into office 2 years ago, that they were going to continue some of the things that President Trump had started with China, with trade agreements with the UK and Kenya, and there really just hasn't been much of anything done. So I think the ambassador is great. She could do her job, but I think the administration's put the wrong priorities out there and are forcing her not to do the things that we've all talked about and even talked about in committee as being the priorities. You know, China, obviously we saw through some of the things that President Trump first promoted, but then we saw during COVID as well how dependent the United States has become on China, and it's really sent a signal to all of America that we need to come back and revisit that. We're seeing issues. We're still struggling with supply chain and trying to focus on how do we get components of items we need and finished goods. And we need to make sure that we have good trade agreements that benefit and are reciprocal between the United States and our trading partners.
Very good point. You and your colleagues recently sent a letter to the president. I'll read here in part. More than 2 years into your term, your administration has not begun to negotiate any comprehensive and enforceable trade agreements, let alone concluded such an agreement. This lacking negotiating agenda puts U.S. farmers, workers, and job creators at a disadvantage against China. Let's start with that. What would be a beneficial trade agreement in your opinion?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to highlight in general is how do we grow the American economy? And obviously, the goods and services that are made in America are desired throughout the world. So we can help American businesses, we can help American workers by making sure that we have good trade agreements that allow our goods entry into those countries. We're kind of missing the boat by not doing this, not moving forward. In the meantime, what we're seeing is China with their Belt and Road Initiative is going throughout the world and building those relationships between other countries and to, in a lot of cases, those countries' detriment as well as the world's detriment. And the United States seems to be on the sideline, and we need to get more engaged in that.
What I'm hearing from you is the idea, sir, of buy American, right? Made in America, buy in America, especially when it comes to those pharmaceuticals also that the U.S. has become so reliant on China for. That could potentially be a step forward again. Make it here, make sure it goes through all the U.S. regulation, make sure it's safe. I just wanted to ask you, though, about the budget proposal from the president. Nearly $7 trillion budget. Of course, we're waiting for the GOP's response due out in mid-April. What would you make of what the president has proposed, and where might the GOP suggest saving some money?
Yeah, I mean, the real problem with what's going on right now when we talk about what's in that budget is this past year we have spent, for every second, we borrow $47,000, which means we spend more than we bring in. So 1 out of every $5 that's spent is borrowed. And President Biden's proposal is to make that 1 out of every $4 is borrowed for the next fiscal year. So basically what they've done is they've looked at every area that they can increase spending on and increase those. The one place that they really looked at, and this was a deceptive thing that the president did in his tweet, was that the Homeland Security is being reduced according to the president's budget.
All right, interesting. Of course, at a time when the border crisis continues on every single day. We covered that here. We appreciate you joining us in studio. Ron Estes, Congressman, thanks so much.
Great, thank you.